If you didn't know, dual wielding is where you have two melee weapons equipped, and any character can do this as long as the weapon has or both weapons have the light property. So we can see here, Lae'zel's got Belm, which has got light, and then her offhand is Rhapsody, which has got light. So when you attack something, you attack with both weapons. In turn-based mode, in a fight, if I just click like this, it will take up one of the attack actions and the bonus action. What you can do is toggle this switch, which on PC is R as a shortcut. So then when you attack, it only uses your attack action. And if you want to use your offhand attack, the other weapon, second weapon, you can do it manually. I tend to like this, so I've got more control. When we hover over the main hand attack, it says 8 to 13 damage, so 1d6 plus 7, which includes the bonuses from the weapon and Lae'zel's current strength. The offhand, however, only adds bonuses from the weapon. We're going to get to that and how we can make that better later. Generally, if you're looking at builds online, they quite rarely include dual wielding, and I just want to show you some ways in which we can make dual wielding better and more useful. Often two-handed weapons are used because we get Great Weapon Master as a feat potentially, which is just so strong, adds 10 damage, often gets us an extra attack with our bonus action anyway. Lots of people build for two-handed weapons, and I use two-handed weapons myself quite often. So one of the ways we can improve dual wielding is to actually allow us to find ways to wield other weapons that aren't light. I just want to show to you, if I equip a weapon, let's say the Mercolite Scourge, the offhand weapon goes away because this weapon does not have the light property. If I try and drag in a dagger here, let's say, nothing happens. Can't do it here. If I try and click on the offhand weapon and have, let's look, Belm, it just puts it in the main hand. If you want to dual wield non-light weapons, such as maybe you love Kethric's Warhammer, it's versatile, so you can have it in one hand. What you can't do is dual wield two-handed weapons. So there's no way to dual wield the Punch-Drunk Bastard, for example, because it's got the two-handed property. So one of the feats available in the game is called, well, Dual Wielder, which does two things. Lets you use weapons that aren't light, and also if you are dual wielding, you get a +1 bonus to armor class. It's a nice little bonus. If you're going to dual wield and you know the concept for your character is dual wielding, I would recommend picking up this feat. And so now I can put on Kethric's Warhammer, and then maybe in my offhand, the Mercolite Scourge, which kind of fits a nice theme there with Kethric. And so now Lae'zel is wielding these two non-light one-handed weapons. Every time you dual wield and you put in a second weapon, it automatically turns on dual wielding. And my armor class went from 24 up to 25. Weirdly, interestingly, I've got a +1 from defense twice. Dual wielding at the moment still isn't very good, because if I wield a two-handed weapon, I can still swing it 3 times. Whereas here, I can only have 1 additional attack for my offhand weapon. So how can we make this better? So the first small optimization we can make if you want to use two-weapon fighting, if you want to be dual wielding, well, is to pick the two-weapon fighting style. What this does is when you attack with your offhand weapon, you do add your ability modifier to the damage of the attack, making it equal in terms of damage to your main hand attack, which is pretty good. Now you can get this as either being a level 1 fighter, a level 2 ranger, a level 3 swords bard, or there is an item available in the Last Light Inn called the Gloves of the Balanced Hands, but it goes in your glove slot, which is quite coveted. There are lots of very good gloves, so I'd only use that kind of as a last resort. So now Lae'zel is going to be able to add currently +3 to her offhand attack. Another feat potentially to pick up, because it's a fairly strong feat anyway, is Savage Attacker. So you roll your damage dice twice when you make a melee weapon attack, and hopefully you're going to be making lots of them with your offhand as well as your main hand. And this essentially gives you advantage on your damage rolls, which is always going to be a very good thing. And the more dice you roll, the better the effect that this will have. So both the main hand attack and the offhand attack both add the ability modifier. Now, making your offhand attack a little bit more worth it, but we're still at a ratio of 3 attacks from the main attack for fighter at level 11 or 12 to 1 offhand attack. Other classes, melee classes, martial classes, will have 2 attacks for the action and 1 offhand attack. And this is where my second optimization comes in, which is adding more bonus actions.
Never a dull moment.
Tav here has 3 bonus actions. These aren't exactly permanent. He won't lose them based off time, at least anyway. So where does this come from? Well, I think one of these is fairly obvious and comes from the fact that Tav here has multi-classed into Thief. Level 3 Thief gives you an additional bonus action. So now, my character here does 2 attacks with the main hand and 2 attacks with the offhand, making the bonus actions pretty much equal to the main hand attacks in terms of number. But of course, he's got 3 bonus actions here. Now, this is a late game item. This is an Act 3. It comes from Cazador's Palace. It's called the Helmet of Grit. In early access, this used to come from behind Draw Raglan. It was brilliant. You used to get it so early in the game. Anyway, what does it do? When you're below 50% hit points, you gain an additional bonus action. And the keen-eyed among you will see that he's on 41 out of 97, quite close to 50%, just under 50%. So if I pause, I've got dual wielding turned off. I've got 2 weapons. I can take 1 attack and 2 attacks. That's for my action. And then 3 offhand attacks. I think that's pretty cool. You do have to be very careful though. If you don't have enough hit points, there's only 41 here, and half of 97, well, I guess we've 48, right? We've got 48 hit points. You could go down very easily. One way to mitigate this is to use some of the magical heavy armors that reduce incoming damage and potentially have heavy armor master or blade ward. Maybe someone's got warding bond cast on them to reduce that incoming damage. A barbarian could be raging also to help reduce the damage, but you want to find ways to slow down the amount of damage you do take. Next up isn't so much an optimization, but maybe just a choice to think about making. I've made the choice here for Tav. This class here is an Oathbreaker, level 8 paladin, level 3 rogue, level 1 fighter. The level 3 rogue is to get the extra bonus action. The level 1 fighter is to get the 2-weapon fighting style. And the level 8 paladin, well, we need level 7 really. They get the aura of hate. So you and nearby fiends and undead, they have to be careful with that, but do an additional charisma amount of damage to damage dealt with melee weapons. Now, I've been a bit cheeky and I've used an elixir of Cloud Giant Strength. That is not something you need, but if you want to be thinking about improving your damage, it is something you've got to at least consider. I don't tend to use this unless I get to Act 3 and I've got a few of them. I don't tend to farm them in any sort of way. Now, to actually see some real damage numbers, I'm going to have to start attacking people and or things, really. Let's dual wield. Now, this thing was vulnerable to bludgeoning damage, which is why this was up at 40. But we can see we've got +8 from the strength, that's from the elixir, and a +4 from charisma. This would also apply to the offhand attacks. There we are, that was an offhand attack. Added the +4. It was resistant to piercing, so it only did kind of 8 damage. So one class to think about is mixing Paladin with Thief. But if you're going to be dual wielding, I really do think you need 3 levels of Thief. So the other 9 levels, you need to think about what sort of theme do you want. There are 2 other ways to gain extra bonus actions, but I don't think they work out particularly well for dual wielding builds. One of them is getting level 6 an open-handed monk, because you get the wholeness of body ability, which adds an extra bonus action, but that only lasts for 3 turns. And you can only do it once per long rest, so I don't think a once per long rest ability is good to rely upon. Also, there's a Pyro Quickness hat, so where you cast a leveled fire spell as an action, you get an extra bonus action for that round, but that requires you using a spell slot every single round that you want to use an extra offhand attack. I wouldn't really recommend it. Okay, I've nearly run out of fists to actually fight inside the city now. Very in this save file, I might have to start using a different one. Right. Ah, my dual wielder goes after these 2 fists. Okay. One nice thing about having a paladin as your dual wielder is that they can smite on every single attack. So I'm just going to use my bonus actions here. I've got 3 of them. I'm going to go with them first. Why not? Let's use Luck of the Far Realms just to show this off. But since he's a rogue, I can use sneak attack, but I can't use both at once if I use them as a reaction. What I'll do is do that. Go on. That's 1 bonus action. Bonus action number 2. And again, I can use Divine Smite if I wish. Maybe sneak attack this time. Oh, I didn't really want that on. This one, I won't use my smite, just to show this. Just going for 3 attacks. Oh, and done. Now, these are not the most difficult foes, but I am consistently hitting okay damage. Sometimes it's very good damage, especially on the critical hits. Sometimes without a critical hit, without sneak attack. You know, what did I do here? 26 damage. I think that's respectable. Now, where's that all come from? Because we were starting the video with doing 2 to 5 damage with my offhand dagger. Now, I've outfitted this character with as many items as I could find I had in my save file for adding damage to every single attack. So the helmet of grit, we need this for the extra bonus action, which is why I started with about half hit points. I will have links to these items in the description below. The cloak of elemental absorption, this will rarely come up, but if and when it does, we can use a reaction to absorb one of the element types, and it adds an extra 1d6 damage on the next attack. The armor has nothing to do with the damage, I'm just going to skip over that. There are a few different gloves in the game that add damage to your attacks. Here, the Dark Justicia gauntlets. In Act 3, you have the Hellfire gauntlets, I think they're called, which add 1d6 fire damage to your attacks. That applies to every single attack. The Linebreaker boots, I didn't show them off. Perhaps I'll go and do that in a second. Once per turn, when you dash, you gain Wrath for 3 turns, which adds an extra +1 bonus damage for each turn remaining. Brood Mother's Revenge. Whenever the wearer is healed, their weapons become coated in magic and deal an additional 1d6 poison damage. I didn't have him healed there. He could have had an extra 1d6 damage to every single attack. Caustic Band, an extra 2 acid damage for every attack. That's just a set amount. And the Strange Conjurate Ring. While concentrating on a spell, whereas weapon attacks deal an additional 1d4 psychic damage. So on my attacks there, I was missing out on Wrath, poison damage, and psychic damage. So we can have a much higher damage per attack. For the weapons, I'm not going to focus on the weapons very much, because part of what I want to make available to you is just your own ability to make your own build. So you pick whatever one-handed weapons you like the look of. So I've got the Mercolite Scourge here because it deals an additional 1d6 necrotic damage with every hit. So that's lovely for the main hand attack. Here, Knife of the Undermounting King. I think this is quite good because it reduces the number you need to roll a critical hit while attacking by 1. So critical hits now happen on a 19. And I picked up the Deadshot, which reduces the number needed for a critical hit by another 1. If you're going to go crit fishing, trying to get lots of critical hits, you should try and get as many reductions to the number you need for a critical hit. So perhaps, instead of a Cloud Giant Strength Elixir, let's search for them. I'm bound to have some. Here we are. The Elixir of Viciousness instead. As a Paladin, to get the Strange Conjurate Ring going, let's add Magic Weapon. Something else we can do. Gail's already got the Drake Throat Glaive ready. What we'll do is we'll put this weapon on the floor. Since he's got more attacks with his bonus actions than actions, we can use a Drake Throat Glaive to add an extra 1d4 damage of whatever element we want. Let's just say Thunder. Coming back to other weapons, yeah, anything you want. Maybe you want your main hand to have something that's maybe defensive or gives you extra options, like Marka Heshkir. Maybe you want Morning Frost, and you could actually put 1d4 cold damage on your offhand attack to get that extra 1 cold damage as well. Maybe you love Nyrulna. It's a great weapon, actually. I should probably be wielding this instead of the Mercolite Scourge. I have got some more items to show you, some alternatives. Here I've changed the Helmet of Grit out for something called the Diadem of Arcane Strategy. This works particularly well if you're building the Oathbreaker build, the Paladin build I've got here. Because what this does is when you inflict a condition, you gain Arcane Synergy, and this makes weapon attacks deal additional damage equal to the spellcasting ability modifier, which is the same as the Aura of Hate. And so we get 2 lots of our charisma added to the damage, which is brilliant. I think it would be remiss of me not to talk about the Ballast Armor. I don't tend to use it in my runs because I get it very late in the game, if I even get it at all. And by this point, we're overpowered anyway, but what this does, in case you didn't know, enemies within 7 feet become vulnerable to piercing damage unless they're resistant. And we also gain a +2 bonus to initiative rolls, which is great. Our armor class is Suffering, but only at Dexterity 10. But when you can kill things so quickly anyway, that barely matters. And I've switched out the gloves earlier. I called these the Hellfire gloves, I think. They're the Helldusk gloves. Again from Act 3. This time we add 1d6 fire damage instead of the 1d4 I was doing before. Plus we get a +1 bonus to spell save DC, but that's not what this character's about. I didn't show the Linebreaker boots in action earlier. Because we're a thief, or rogue, we can dash with a bonus action, which does take an attack away. I actually needed it to get to Fitzpatrick here anyway. But it means our melee attacks now have +3 damage to each attack.
On my way.
I just gained arcane synergy there, and that's because of the Ballast armor. It applies Aura of Murder, and so this guard is going to be vulnerable to this attack, or at least the piercing damage of the attack, because the weapon does piercing damage. I'm also going to help him out. Brood Mother's Revenge is now just applied. I got poison on both of his weapons, and the Knife of the Undermountain King also does piercing damage. So I doubt this guard's really going to survive. Let's just come to just one attack at a time. And of course I get a lovely critical hit. So yeah, this is a bit ridiculous, to be honest. Because I'm a half orc, that wasn't really planned. It's just that's just my tab on this save file. I got an extra one damage, 1d6 damage there. Let's add this all up. So that's 66, 78, 86, 88, 95, 102 damage in one hit. Obviously it's a critical hit. That's not going to happen every time. I am using late game items. But the point here is, if I need to, I could have done that two more times on that turn, had one attack left, one bonus action. Subsequent turns, I could be doing that 4 times every turn. Not with a critical hit. If you have picked Luck of the Far Realms, you can get a critical hit guaranteed once per long rest. Earlier, I did say I tend to turn dual wielding off, this toggle switch down here, because I get more control. But actually, there are 2 instances where it's much more beneficial to have it on. And that's going to be the last thing I'll show you. To show you the usefulness of the dual wielding, having it on all the time, I'm going to create a new character, or respec. And I'm going to create a level 8 fighter, level 4 thief. Here, I do think Battle Master or Champion work well. Champion helps get the improved critical hit. It's not a massive bonus, but it is a bonus. Battle Master lets you add damage to your main hand attacks at least. I'm going to go for Battle Master just because I love them anyway. Now, having dual wielding on does work with Sentinel. You can make Sentinel happen on your turn with the use of another character apart from the one with Sentinel. I'll show you how, but we'll get 2 attacks with it, which is going to be very strong. What I like about level 8 fighter and level 4 thief is you will get 4 feats in total, because a level 8 fighter has 3 feats because they get an extra one at level 6, and level 4 thief, level 4 in any class, gets you 1 feat anyway. So I'm going to pick up dual wielder and then probably just round off his strength up to 20 to keep this simple. I take that back. I'm going to leave strength at 18 and have savage attacker instead, because I think it's such a good feat for this type of build, dual wielder build. I've gone and switched out the helmet again to the Grimskull helm. With this build, the Diadem of Arcane Strategy would only add an extra 1 damage for the intelligence at 12. I don't think it's worth it. So I'm going to start the combat off by using Hunter's Mark.
You were witnessed assaulting.
What's going to happen is when Will moves away and this guard, this fist, takes an opportunity attack, we get the choice of using Sentinel, and when I do, let's watch how many attacks come out. Both attacks come out. Because I have... Oh, no, come back. Because I have dual wielding on. And, interestingly, I'm sure it's a bug, I can now actually use 1 extra attack. One other small source of extra damage, I haven't used it yet, is Psionic Overload. Let's use this action. I'll do an extra little bit of psychic damage. If you are focusing on psychic damage, then the Resonance Stone is something you should be on the lookout for. Let's use Strip Attack, he might just die, yeah. Because of the Battle Master maneuver, and the fact I've got Savage Attacks and Savage Attacker, I'm doing loads of damage. Along with the Ballast Armor, that's just a stupid amount of damage. Well, it's almost overkill. So this is what, 92, 94, 106, 103, 105 damage. It's not the highest amount of damage out there. So I made another change, the Callous Glow Ring instead of the Strange Conduit Ring. The rare deals an additional 2 points of damage against creatures that are illuminated, and with Niruna, if you're up close and personal, they will be illuminated. I've forced these 2 fists to flee, so when they move out of range of my tab here, of my character here, he will get an opportunity attack, and dual wielding should have both attacks. So opportunity attack. I did take 2 attacks, though the second attack didn't actually apply because they already killed him on the first attack. And everyone else is going to get the opportunity attacks as well. You can decide whether you want dual wielding on or off. In this situation, oh, I missed anyway. I already used my reaction in the previous round, so don't get it back until the end of this turn. So that's why you didn't get it there. But now I'm in the combat, I want to turn it off. But once you've used up all your actions and bonus actions, you can't actually toggle this. But with the ballast armor, we're just poking people to death here. In fact, I had turned off the ballast armor there. Sorry, I turned it off to try and make sure the guards survive. But because I was getting critical hits there, and there, oh, it's just very lucky, isn't it? Right. Because of the critical hits, I'm doing lots of damage, and with Cull the Weak, it killed them. But you can imagine if I had the ballast armor, these numbers would be, well, literally twice as big from the piercing damage. You let me know what your favorite weapons are for dual wielding, whether you'd ever consider it, why you do or don't like it, any items I've missed off, because I haven't got the time here to cover every single weapon and item that adds damage. There are too many weapons in the game to cover, so you let me know. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to all the members of my channel, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.
Witnessed assaulting someone.